With all the propaganda from government and industry spewing out of TVs, radios, newspapers, and the internet, it's sometimes hard to know what to believe. But there are a few good general rules that can help. 1. Science is a method that attempts to arrive at the truth and is not a conspiracy. 2. Whenever Fox News and WikiLeaks disagree, WikiLeaks is right. 3. Listen to what Anonymous has to say. And 4. Never believe this guy.
I do not do what I do because I've got courage, ladies and gentlemen. I do what I do because I recognize a full-out authoritarian takeover when I see one, and I leap into action because I want to preserve my flesh and that of my family.
That's right. Never ever believe Alex Jones, except sometimes he and his conspiracy-laden paranoid website gets it right.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a proposed free trade agreement that will literally sign the globe over to corporate control. And as it stands, we, the people who will be most affected by this contract, won't be able to see how our sovereignty and our planet is being raped and ransacked in the name of potential profit margin until it is too late. TPP negotiations have taken place under a freakish cloak of secrecy, denying all but a very few any input into the terms of the agreement. The only people who have had access to the negotiations are 600 advisors, none of whom work for Congress, and 500 of which are corporate lobbyists.
Alex Jones's InfoWars has one thing wrong. It's not the whole world, just 12 countries, with another 6 believed to be future members. The dark green ones are in, the light green ones are out, or they've declared an official interest. The blue ones are seen as likely to join. Altogether, it represents about half the world's population and more than half of the world's GDP. But is it really that bad? What does WikiLeaks say?
You need to know this. The Obama administration is preparing to sell America out to a handful of private corporations. Well, more than a handful, but anyhow, that's because right now President Obama is preparing to push through the largest trade deal in human history, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or as it's more commonly known, the TPP. If approved, the TPP would create a whole new set of rules regulating the economies of 12 countries. The red countries seen here on 4 different continents bordering the Pacific Ocean. These rules cover everything from pharmaceuticals to digital copyright law and could permanently change the way everyday Americans and people all over the world interact with the global economy. So if you think the Obama administration, you would think, as a result of this, that the Obama administration would want to keep the public as up to date as possible on such a big trade deal, right? Wrong. The United States has negotiated the TPP almost entirely in secret, with the help of about 600 private corporations. Most of what we know about it actually comes from leaked documents, and those documents paint a pretty scary picture. Now, thanks to WikiLeaks, we have an even better idea of just how dangerous the TPP really is. The 95-page document proves what many people have long suspected, that the TPP isn't so much a free trade deal as it is a giant giveaway to monster transnational corporations. According to WikiLeaks, the TPP would allow private foreign corporations to sue countries over regulations that those corporations don't like. It would allow them to expand the monopoly powers of pharmaceutical patents. And it would also give corporations the go-ahead to start blocking websites accused of violating copyright law. The documents also show that the Obama administration, on behalf of the United States, has been pushing for some of the TPP's harshest intellectual property laws. To put it bluntly, the TPP would sacrifice national sovereignty, public health, and internet freedom, all in the name of helping private corporations keep their CEOs' wallets fat and their shareholders happy.
Anonymous isn't happy about it either.
If adopted, the copyright enforcement measures proposed in the TPP could make the internet intimidating and repressive. Users will be afraid to view, share, and interact with digital content. An early version of the text has been leaked, and you should be worried about what's inside.
Well, the TPP essentially gives corporations sovereignty over countries. The Young Turks explain.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, that's a trade deal that is going to affect all of us and actually give corporations special rights. They would have the right to sue our government if the government is trying to protect our citizens. They get to do that with all the governments, including our own. So you want to pass a bill saying they're not allowed to pollute this? So no. That would impede my profits. That's in the deal. Okay, from the leaks that we've gotten about the deal, that would impede my profits. So they take you to court. Oh, you want to protect your kids because I'm spilling toxins into the river? Sorry, You're impeding my profits. So I'm not subject to your sovereignty.
Alex Jones and the Young Turks agree. It's really just a difference in style. Uyghur from the Young Turks says this.
I'm glad we had change in this country. Yeah, change, I can believe it. A corporatist by a different name. Barack Obama. Same old, same old.
While Jones explains it this way.
I'm not your property. My mind's not your property. My soul is not your property. And my children are not your property. And their children are not your property. Do you hear me, enemy? You shall not pass!
He does have a valid point, even if he sounds a bit like this guy.
And the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Donald Trump, known as the Donald, isn't related to the right-wing duck in Disney's cartoons. He's the man who keeps flirting with the idea of running for the presidency of the United States. He rose to fame in the 1980s as the richest man in America on the strength of his real estate empire. Since then, his business fortunes have been mixed. He loves media attention and has been involved with televised beauty pageants and pro wrestling. He's also the star of NBC's The Apprentice, a reality TV show where people try to get a job with Trump and he sets them tasks. He's famously unpleasant and loves to say "you're fired" to people who he hasn't actually hired. He is politically outspoken and is an ardent believer that Barack Obama wasn't born in the US. But then again, Trump is also pretty well known for being a bit of a racist. Thank you for coming onto the show, Mr. Trump. You seem to be a constant critic of American presidents, but you agree with President Obama's decision to declare war on Russia after he overthrew the Ukrainian government.
He'll be doing a great service for the country if he does this.
But what if the world is destroyed in a nuclear war?
It will end the question, and indeed the anger, of many Americans.
But that's because it'll all surely be dead. And before Armageddon, don't you realize that life in America has been a disaster because you and your pals like the Koch brothers have been using your money to lobby the government? Do you understand that you shouldn't be denying climate change, cutting education and healthcare, clamping down on free speech?
We know very little.
You've been very active politically. Have you actually achieved anything?
I'm very honored to have gotten him to release his long-form birth certificate.
You're a big supporter of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, that's being negotiated by companies and a few government officials like U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman. The TPP gives away national sovereignty to companies like yours. Have you told Froman what should be in the TPP? Do you want him to give companies that power to ignore national laws?
When he does that to my satisfaction, if it's complete, this check is delivered immediately.
Do you think you will eventually run for president of the United States? A lot of people think you're a political joke. Are you seriously thinking about running for the presidency?
I absolutely would be the most happy of all if I did, in fact, make this contribution.
How would you win? Would you just try to buy the presidency?
Frankly, it's a check that I very much want to write.
How big a check would you be willing to write?
A check immediately for $5 million.
Well, good luck with that. I think it takes billions to run for president. I've noticed that you are a very angry man. If by some horrible miracle you did become president, on whom would you take out your anger?
Inner city children in Chicago, American Cancer Society, AIDS research.
And how do you think people would respond to that?
The American people will be happy.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.